Greetings, Wanderers! Yes, I know. I promised that the next video would be halfway to episode 14. And I am working on it. Promise. But last Saturday, I noticed that a game that I'd had my eye on for a while had a free weekend. And I thought, what better excuse to try out a new shorter video style that, hopefully, I could pump out a bit more quickly. And more importantly, one that didn't require me to have to do my makeup and set up my studio space. So for now, you're stuck with Avatar Yindy. If you've read the title, you'll know that the game in question is none other than Funcom's new sandbox MMO, Dune Awakening. And yes, over the course of this video, I will most certainly end up calling it Dune the Sand Ages. So am I the target audience? Straight away, I was torn. I feel like I'm both the target demographic for this game, and very much not. On the one hand, I'm an aging millennial who spent way too much time in his teens and early 20s playing MMOs. I love sci-fi, I love Frank Herbert's Dune, and all the settings that borrowed from it. Or, just flat out stole from it. Yes, I'm looking at you, Warhammer 40k and Star Wars. I also fell in love with Funcom's other MMO, The Secret World, back in the day. I even bought the lifetime subscription at launch, which, in hindsight, might not have been my wisest financial decision. On the other hand, I always preferred theme park MMOs over sandbox ones, and you really can't get more box of sand than Dune. Add in the fact, I've never been much of a PvP fan. I'm more that antisocial MMO player who likes to play with himself while others watch on. No, I will not rephrase. And the idea of being griefed by some higher level player giving me an atomic sand wedgie isn't exactly appealing. But hey, maybe Dune can change my mind. And you really can't argue with the price tag of free, even if it only was for 72 hours. Disclaimer, I only managed to play for 3 to 5 hours across a couple of sessions, so this isn't a full review, just my first impressions. Performance wise, here's my rig. An AMD Ryzen 7 2700, 32GB of RAM, and an RTX 2070. Okay, if that made sense to any of you, congratulations, you're officially smarter than I am. She was a decent rig when I bought her back in the day 7 years ago, and she still holds up. Though, she does sound like she's struggling through an asthma attack sometimes whenever I play anything more demanding than Minesweeper. So imagine my surprise when I booted up the game and got the warning that I didn't meet the recommended specs. Considering this game is Steam Deck verified, I thought, mate, my PC's definitely more powerful than my deck. And yes, technically this game does run on Steam Deck at 25 to 40 FPS in potato mode. Though on PC, I didn't exactly hit the buttery smooth 60 FPS, but it was definitely playable. And clearly a lot of love went into the lighting engine, though that beauty is entirely lost on the Steam Deck. Character creation and setting. The art style takes heavy inspiration from Denis Villeneuve's recent films. Sleek, modern, minimalist, rather than David Lynch's psychedelic fever dream. So expect military chic and no fat greasy gingers in floating chairs. I, of course, rolled up as an outcast Harkonnen peon, because apparently I was allowed to grow hair. And I chose Swordmaster as my starting class. Guns are basically useless in this setting, and the other options being Mentat, Bene Gesserit, Trooper, and Planetologist didn't really appeal for a first run. Of course, all these classes can be unlocked later through story quests, so it's just your starter pick, much like in Dark Souls. As for the setting, the game takes place in an alternative Dune timeline, where Paul's mum did what she was bloody well told and had a daughter. No Kwisatz Haderach, no Golden Path, no Worm God Emperor, just a perpetual status quo to house an MMO. And therein lies my first gripe. I'd love a Dune MMO that explores the wider Imperium and its politics. But once again, we're stuck entirely on Arrakis. And honestly, outside of the giant sandworms, Arrakis isn't the most visually interesting place. It's a bit like setting a Star Wars MMO entirely set on Tatooine. That said, Funcom did nail the desert survival vibe, managing your thirst, heat stroke, and how you move across the sand so you don't attract the worms. It's all authentic, but it does lock the game into one very specific, very sandy corner of the universe. As for gameplay, at first glance it's your standard over-the-shooter RPG with survival elements. You crash land, a hooded figure gives you a quest, and off you go. Early mechanics also include standing in the sun for too long means that you overheat. Thirst is a constant threat, and you end up having to suck the dew off of flowers in order to survive. And yes, eventually you do unlock the iconic still suit, so you too can drink your own recycled piss. There's also a Breath of the Wild style climbing mechanic that lets you scale almost any surface as long as you've got the stamina. As for combat, well, it's not great. The AI is as dumb as a bag of bricks, gunplay feels floaty, melee is sticky, and those bloody shield bastards keep kamikaze rushing you and can only be killed with a slow, deliberate stab. Which is faithful to the books, but tedious in practice. This means most encounters boil down to kiting the enemy round corners and whittling them off one by one. PvP might be a bit more engaging later, but in the opening hours, combat was, well, frankly, a slog. As for the base building, after a couple of deaths, it was time to set down roots. This felt weird, tonally. I was supposed to be on this desolate, harsh desert world. But instead, I was basically house hunting like a suburban soccer mum looking for a decent school district. Not too close to the neighbours now, good resources, access to a nice bit of shade, check. Eventually, I found a decent spot and suddenly I felt like I was back in Fallout 76. Building itself is solid, if a little menu clunky. I accidentally crafted multiple copies of things I didn't need, because as it turns out, you actually need to click confirm on the item you're trying to craft, not just highlight over it. Though, eventually I made my way down the tech tree and even managed to unlock a blood draining gun. Yes, really. And of course, the iconic still suit. And then there's the exploration. I stumbled across a spice shrine that triggered a psychedelic dream sequence, which gave me heavy Secret World vibes. Then, a little later, I ran into a couple of other players I mistook for enemies. After shooting at each other for a bit, I then realised that PvP is disabled in the early game, so we just stood there awkwardly staring at each other, before eventually buggering off. Eventually, the game sent me to my first trading post, which finally introduced NPCs, missions, and the ability to unlock new classes. My first quest, deliver 40 copper. Just my luck. I'd already refined all of mine. But luckily, there was a deposit that was untouched just outside. Apparently the NPCs can't walk more than 20 feet for themselves, but hey, it's free money. I then played a little bit further on the Steam Deck, but the next mission was basically a repeat. Trek through the dunes without angering the sandworms, clear another bandit camp, steal whatever plot significant MacGuffin that they were hiding, and then run back. Functional, but repetitive. My closing thoughts. So, the loop is clear. Gather, upgrade, push further out. Endgame revolves around building ornithopters and competing in PvP zones for the best resources. The full campaign reportedly takes about 80 hours to complete and sticks faithfully to the lore of the books. But for me, the game's biggest strength is also its biggest weakness. Yes, they nailed the shields versus guns, the desert survival, and the freeman lifestyle. But combat is sticky and sluggish. The world design is limited to sands, rocks, and wrecks. And Arrakis itself just isn't diverse enough to keep things visually interesting long term. Sure, the base building works, but it lacks the cozy charm of Fallout 76. But, as a desert survival game, they absolutely nail it. So, if you love the new Dune movies, this might be worth checking out. It's basically a virtual holiday in the UAE, without the associated guilt. But unlike the secret world, which begged me to explore every creepy ruin and every haunted corner, here, once you've seen one sand dune, you've kind of seen them all. So, will I pick up Dune Arse Awakening again? Yeah, probably. But I'll most likely wait until it's heavily discounted during the next summer sale. Though, when I do, I'll make sure that my still suit is fitted properly, because trust me, you don't want to mix up those tubes. Dune the Sand Ages, final verdict. 69 out of 10. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one. Thanks again for watching. Yindy, out.
I crash upon a world of flame, a sea of dust, no two dunes the same. The sun beats down, my thirst it grows. From flowers, tears, my lifeblood flows. Shadows fall on endless stone. I claim the wasteland as my home. With blood and steel I raise my hand, a fragile king of shifting sand. Oh, the desert calls my name through the silence and the flame. Arrakis takes, Arrakis binds. In the storm I'll test my mind. Sands of awakening rise and fall. One more battle, heed the call. A sword master with shaking name. The foes are weak yet none the same. Bullets sponges, shadows flee. The worms still sing their hymn to me. I build my camp beneath the sky. Copper veins and dew